Hey, Don Williams here with today's episode of the Proven Entrepreneur Show. The Proven Entrepreneur Show is the show designed to help you as a non-entrepreneur take your first step into entrepreneurship, or if you are an entrepreneur, to take your next step to be bigger, better as you go. Today's guest got a real treat for you today. I have John Gleason with Supporting Strategies. Welcome to the show, John.
Good morning, Don. Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. Now, and I got a question I'm not going to ask you for about 15 minutes, but I can't wait to ask this question because out of 150 or 200 episodes and thousands of entrepreneurs, I know one thing about you that I don't know any other entrepreneur ever did. And when you shared it with me the first time, I was like, genius. And so stick around, listen to the whole episode. You're going to want to catch that, folks. Okay, so Supporting Strategies is a trusted resource for entrepreneurs. But take us back. What was your hardest near failure moment in Boston where you thought the business might not make it? And then how did you turn that around?
I think my hardest near failure moment was about my third attempt to bank the company, to get a credit line for the company. We were growing fast. We were bootstrapped. I had borrowed $67,000 on a ranch house that I owned, small home, just outside of Boston. And that's how we started the company. So probably 5 years in, Don, I was going to bank after bank. And I had a business partner who was saying to me, don't bother. We're not bankable. It's not going to work. And I believe it was Bay Bank. I was with the third or fourth time. And it's a process, as you know. It was much more laborious at that point in time. This is over 25 years ago. And they finally took their time, probably 2 months, and came back to us and said, no, sorry, went through credit. We can't do it. And, we had a significant payroll, scrambling to make payroll, scrambling to pay vendors, meeting with vendors in person, paying them what I could to keep going, and, going without paychecks for months at a time, little children, that at home. It got pretty dire. And we finally were able to finance with HSBC Bank, Hong Kong Savings Bank, which is a very big bank worldwide. And I was very fortunate. I'm still grateful to HSBC to this day. They did a 1.785, strange number, but that was their number. $1.785 million credit line and revolver was included with that. And I went out and bought some additional equipment. That was really the liftoff point for us to get to the point where we were able to build the company large enough to accomplish 2.5 million in EBITDA on 14 million in sales, and to eventually sell the company to a large private equity group called Kohlberg.
So tell me this, from the time that you started trying to secure financing to the time HSBC came through, that time when you're cajoling, begging, borrowing, pleading with vendors, when you're having tough conversations in your house because you're not bringing paychecks in on a regular basis, how long was that time frame?
It was 7 years. It was 7 years. The reason I know is I have one of those acrylic awards from the bank where they granted us the credit line, and we went from like 0 to 60. So I was able to get equipment credit because I could lease equipment and so forth, but I wasn't able to get a hold of cash. So it was difficult. It was a difficult undertaking, and we spent a lot of time poring over cash flow forecasts and cajoling different clients, asking them to put us in front of larger vendors that they had been doing business with for many, many years, just because we were this, quote unquote, a startup, even though we were, now at that point, we're probably 8 years into it, 9 years into it. But I remember vividly with 7 years.
Yeah, brutal. The big lesson there, folks, is don't quit. Keep going. There's a lot of 20-year overnight success stories where they were on the downside most of the time, but when they got to the upside was so far up, it made up for a lot of that downtime. Okay, Supporting Strategies. You've helped hundreds of Boston businesses with financial operations. What's the most common, dumbest money mistake you see entrepreneurs make, and how can they fix that?
Well, the most common thing I think we see with small entrepreneurs, small companies, and our most recent 3 clients are California, Texas, and Texas. But the smaller, and they're larger companies, but the smallest entrepreneurs, one thing that I see them do is oftentimes they're operators, professional operators. They're great at whatever they do. They're roofers, they're landscapers, they're chiropractors, they're running preschools, and they have a tendency to go to the bank and check their bank balance online. And that's a terrific mistake because you've got checks floating, you've got payroll, you've got 401k match, you really need to professionalize your books. So that's a mistake that I see with, believe it or not, even larger $5, $6, $7 million companies. Sometimes they live on the online balance or by literally phoning the bank to try to get their balance. But that's not really the cash they have, right, Don? So that's with the small companies. With the larger companies, what we see is a lack of planning, forecasting for the future and checking seasonality, like not just looking at trailing 12 months, which we call TTM, but comparing, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, 2020 previous years. Take a look at that quarter, look at your percentage of, what I'd like to look at is percentage of expenses against gross revenue, and see if your payroll is trending up. Is your insurance trending up, whatever it might be, your rent, your what have you. And then move the needle on the larger expenses. Don't so much focus on the tiny, tiny expenses because you're not going to see an overall improvement in the health of the company. So I'm talking about from the financial side. So those are two things that I see. The real small companies, they just don't have the data. They're not getting the reports that they need. They don't understand the KPIs and so forth. The larger companies, it's amazing. Many of them don't do much forecasting and they're really living month to month, week to week.
Yeah, amazing. So you talked about this. To me, Boston has like this great historical DNA, this great entrepreneurial DNA that's kind of unique to Boston. And so how do you think, and does that have any effect on, how you're able to expand and have customers all across the country?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, Don. I'm in an 11-story office building just outside of Boston, and I met with a real estate syndicator this morning, commercial real estate syndicator, who's from Boston, and he doesn't do any business in New England. And so what we were talking about this morning at 8 o'clock in the morning was how small the country is, quote unquote. So he's got some deals going on in North Dakota, South Dakota. He's getting out of a deal in Savannah. He's getting out of a deal in Norfolk, Virginia. These are young guys, early 40s. Dad's a CPA, good friend of mine. So I think, yes, Boston is kind of known as a place where you can go to get things done. And, there are a lot of folks who are highly educated in the area that remained here after they've gone to college here and that and so forth. And we've got a great history. But I'll tell you, it's kind of funny that you bring that up. Is one of my newest clients, I get a call from the CEO, and the company was based in Cerritos, California. And I said, geez, what brings you here? The first thing you want to ask always, how did you find out about me? And he said, well, I'm from Weymouth, Mass., which is a suburb of Boston. But I said, well, this is a Miami number. He goes, well, I live in Miami. And my company is a $60 million company in California. We operate California, Arizona, and I know you see this, Don, California, Arizona, Texas, and to some extent Florida, but I'm really comfortable dealing with people from the area, And I said, okay. And then his COO was from Massachusetts as well, but that's not always the case. Another new client of ours is down in Austin, a medical device company. And I was talking to him, kidding around. We're talking about how small the world is now. And I said, you are not from Texas, sir. And he laughed and he said, I'm from Pittsburgh. I said, oh, you're from the Monongahela River area, right? And he said, it's funny that you mentioned that. We were called the Monongahela River Rats. So the reason I'm bringing this up is not to go on and on, but just to mention that I cannot believe how much in the past 20 years, how much the world has shrunk, quote unquote shrunk. We're actually dealing with clients in Western Europe now. We're doing business for their American affiliated companies, so we're doing Gap and so on. So yeah, it's fun, we talk about sports and whatnot, but actually we're about trying to help people. That's what we really like to do. My personal opinion is that most people are very good people. And if I can help them in any way to do better, to, advance their cause, to help them build their business, then I'm all about it. I don't care where they're from and who they are. But, we we all identify, right? I know you identify with a certain football team, the Sooners, and that's fun and so forth. But I know you, Don, and you're like me. I'll work with anybody from anywhere. And I always give people the benefit of the doubt, and love working with people from all over.
Yeah, no doubt. And I've seen that in, over the years of my career, how small the world has gotten. And so today I literally have clients on every continent but Antarctica.
That's amazing.
And if I could find somebody on Antarctica, I would cut you a heck of a deal, because I want to be able to say I have clients everywhere. And
I think
don't
that's
know.
awesome.
I don't know what service I can provide to scientists in Antarctica, but I'll think of something, you know, I'll think of something.
I think that's fantastic. I'm only on 2 continents right now, but I admire what you're doing, and I would like to head in that direction myself.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, because companies in other continents, everybody wants to do business in the US. Okay. Tariff, no tariff, doesn't really make any difference. If you're in another country, you would like to be doing business in the US because it still is the largest economy in the world. And so,
Absolutely.
any way you look at it, we're not the biggest population, but we are the biggest economy for sure. So, okay, here, next question. Entrepreneurs just starting out, maybe small, medium business. Okay, what's one back office system or process that's almost universal you could recommend to almost anybody that would save them years of pain and millions of dollars?
Absolutely. My favorite thing, I'm writing a book about it right now. Hope we're going to talk about it just a little bit, and that is to create a business plan. And the reason is that once you create a business plan, even if it's a one-page business plan, even if you're just starting a landscaping and snow removal business or ice removal, or you're doing a parking lot striping or what have you, you yourself, the entrepreneur, you're going to bring that into your subconscious that you've developed that in the back of your mind. Even when you're sleeping at night, you're taking a nap or what have you, you have this business plan. So you have a mission. You're heading towards completion of this mission. I'm not saying that that business plan is not going to change. It's going to change. It's going to change often, especially the first years that you're in business. So make changes to it, but you've always got that mantra, right? That business plan, and you can learn from your mistakes. You can improve upon it. But if you don't have a business plan, you can't guide yourself towards any goal. You have to have a business plan. And I think even myself today, and it's supporting strategies of our franchisee, we're all locally owned and operated. It's a national company. We have to have a business plan, and we live and die by this is the way we're going to work. It doesn't have to be rigid. The business plan can change, but that's the very biggest thing, in my opinion, that any entrepreneur starting out should adopt rather, excuse me, not adapt and adopt. Make sure that you have one. It does not have to be a 100-page business plan. It can be very brief. You can expand upon it.
I love that. And I am a firm believer, no mission, no accomplishment. You'll get an awful lot of nothing with the absence of a mission. Now, the first time I met you, you talked about your commercial printing company, the one that took you 7 years to get bankable and that you eventually sold. And you told me that you sold that company from the time that you thought about selling the company. You actually had a deal in literally days. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's correct. So we founded the company with the idea that we were going to sell the company eventually. So any company that you've found, you're either going to leave, the old saw is, you're going to leave on a stretcher, or you pass away at your desk, God forbid, or perhaps that's what you want to do, or perhaps you're going to sell the company, or perhaps you're going to pass it on to your legacy, to your children and so forth. But our particular goal at that point in time was we wanted to sell the company. So believe it or not, the business plan expanded that we had, and it probably was an 80-page business plan at one point in time. Certain parts of the business were the responsibility of other members of the business that worked there. Because another thing that you want to do as an entrepreneur, of course, is you want to not only give credit where credit is due, but you want to give people responsibility, and you want to let them perform. And if you are, micromanager, and you're over controlling and so forth, you won't let the business grow. You're choking the business. You're actually the log jam that's preventing the business from growing. So the most important thing you can do besides the business plan is hire the right people, and be quick to fire, but slow to hire sometimes. It takes a long time to really understand what that is for people like myself, but some people pick it up right away, the people that are brighter than I and so forth. But it did take me a while. The other thing is, even though you might empathize with someone and they might have, many issues and so forth, you have to recognize what their limitations are. Even though they're smarter than you, they can do certain things a lot better than you within the business. Realize what their limitations are, because they can be limiting the business as well. So those are some of my opinions on what you can do best.
I love that. So I can recall that when you told me you had a deal literally within, I don't remember, 3 or 4 or 5 days, really short time frame. I was like, now how in the heck? And what you told me, going back to this business plan and this mission, is you said, we had a printed copy of our business plan literally sitting on my desk every day.
Yes, sir.
I own the company. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's pure genius. Can't imagine, anybody else has ever told me something like that. And so,
Really? Well, that was our differentiator. And yes, we did have a deal within 5 days. So when we decided that we were actually going to put the company on the market, and we did it without a broker or an intermediary, which was not wise in retrospect. But at the time, what was going on at the time was some large entities were going around, private equity groups, and also public companies. It was a public company based in Dallas, actually, that I met with. And there were some family offices that were consolidating the commercial printing business because the commercial printing business was undergoing a lot of change at the time. So we went out. I had a business partner who was sales. I was operations, and I was the CFO, the accountant, and so forth. We went out to Chicago to a national print show that was, believe it or not, a week long. Stayed in the hotel for a week, and the buyers were right there. All the folks that we were hearing speeches from and talks and so forth. And we basically, over cocktails and dinner that night, we were getting offers from day one, from day two, but day three, and by day five, we had a verbal agreement, and, we were part of a national entity. I think 5 months later, we sold the company, and then I ended up working for that company for about 3 years. It was fun. It was a whirlwind. It was very quick, but we had a good idea of what we wanted for the business, what we thought the business was worth. It was part of our business plan to know where we were. So I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. We didn't know at the time that other companies weren't doing the same thing until we were acquired. And they said, geez, we hadn't seen this. We hadn't seen this before. You actually know what your margins are, your ratios, your key performance indicators. And we were following an author of a book called Open Book Management at the time. And the sample business that was in Open Book Management was a chocolate chip cookie manufacturing company, believe it or not. And we were using a lot of the same premises that were illustrated in that book. And forgive me right now, I can't recall the author. And they were very good. Open book management just meant that we made people responsible for their parts of the business. If they were running the bindery, they were responsible for that. If they're the HR manager, they were responsible for HR. And then we shared with them their performance and their KPIs, the key performance indicators that's how we knew what their performance was. And if they wanted to edit the KPIs, we allowed them to edit the KPIs and show us how they would do better and so forth. So we had trucking at the time, we had sales, we had estimating, we had staff accountants, we had 6 staff accountants. So we had about 130 employees at the time of the sale of the business. So we had a number of different areas where people could demonstrate their expertise. So the key for us was make sure that people know how they're doing. Forget about annual reviews. Talk to people quarterly. That was my philosophy. Talk to people all the time. And if they wanted to, my office door was open. If they wanted to come in and, make an appointment, come in and talk to me in regards to how I was performing, that was fine too. We were open to that. And the other thing we did, lastly, I'll just end with, is we believed in walk around management. So we had a 130,000 square foot plant, but actually the top floor of the plant was 3 floors, each 30,000 some odd square feet. The top floor we sublet because we wanted to control the freight elevators, believe it or not, Don. So on floors 1 and 2, I would walk those floors every day, at least twice a day, maybe 3 times a day. And I would say hi to all the foremen or lead people, and at least, and every driver, every person that worked for me, if I could. And they knew they could come up and they could tell us what was going on, how we could improve, what we were doing wrong, and so forth. And they knew it was an opportunity for them, not necessarily just to kibitz, but to kind of share experiences. So I would highly recommend that to anyone who, works in a physical plant or works in a physical business where you're coming in contact with your team members. And that's to be open with them and communicate with them as often as you can.
Love that. Okay, we got just another couple minutes. So I
Yes,
want to
sir.
talk. I got a little inside knowledge. I know you're writing a book. So tell us a little bit about your book and what you're discussing, and put you on the spot. Like, when will it be out?
Don, I'm really enjoying the process. With Don's help, I'm writing a book, and right now the tentative name for the book is 3-Ring Binder. It has to do with our business plan. I cannot believe how personal the book has become. Where I'm at right now, Don, is I've gone back to my wife, my sister who worked in the business, my adult son, and said to them, can you give me perspective on what you thought about the business? And, what not just my role, but, what were your impressions? And I said, listen, I don't want your answers right now. This is literally 2 weeks ago, not this past weekend, the weekend before. I said, take a couple of weeks, ruminate about it. Email me, call me, whatever. My son lives with me. My wife lives with me, of course. And they're all thinking about different things, and they've been great and supported me in regards to suggesting different chapters and so forth, and help me with the editing. As a matter of fact, already I've thrown out some stuff that I don't think was that it was pertinent to me personally, but what I'm looking to do is actually to help business people to improve their lives and improve their business and so forth. And I'm going to try to make my past business experiences relevant to them. In terms of my original goal was to complete it in October, but now that I've got other family members and stakeholders actually involved, and they've agreed to give me some feedback, I'm going to probably say first quarter of 26, because it's more important to me that it's quality. It won't be a real long book, Don, but I really appreciate your help with it, and I'm very enthusiastic about it. Spend time mostly on the weekends on it. So I'm looking forward to it. It will be, it will have some funny stories, some pertinent stories, but hope to incorporate some business lessons that I learned the hard way, in real life, in RL, as they call it now.
I love that. And I love the title. Like I said, out of, 35 years with entrepreneurs all over, and a lot of entrepreneurs who had business plans, and a lot of entrepreneurs who didn't have a business plan and who were kind of working like the old oil man or the old horse trader. They were kind of looking in their pocket every day to see how much money they had, looking at the bank and trying to, run a business that way, which is pretty challenging. But you are the only one I've ever heard that kept that business plan in a 3-ring binder on your desk every day. And I think that's magical.
Well, thank you. It turned out to be a very, very useful tool at the end of the day.
Love that. So, John, if somebody's listening to the episode and they'd like to reach out to you, okay, what's the easiest way to do that?
The best way to do that is to please email me at J, for my first name, John, J Gleason, and it's spelled just like Jackie Gleason, so it's GLEASON at supportingstrategies.com. And I will be back to you by the following day, if not the same day, and love to hear from you. Thank you, Don.
Jay Gleason at supportingstrategies.com.
Yes, sir.
John, been my distinct pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Don. Always a pleasure. And I really feel flattered that you gave me the opportunity. Thank you so much.
I'm grateful. Folks, that's today's episode of the Proven Entrepreneur Show. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.